Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Wednesday, Hump Day. It is Wednesday, December 15th, 2021. I'm Sally Blue Sister, and this is My Turn to Talk. Welcome, Petty Deb, and welcome to California. Crucible Man, how are you, my friend? And Lena Hinkle, welcome to you. I hope everyone is having a great day. This is a bit on the chilly side in Southern California. Okay, so we are going to get started. Okay, so I am a bit late today, but today I want to talk about irrational things we do. Things that stick with you throughout life. Have you heard things that have stuck with you for years? Have people said things to you that have had a profound effect on you? And welcome, Frankie. And, I also want to talk about, not only, things that have had a profound effect on you, but I also want to talk about things that you did as a child, that you still do. For instance, or things that people would say to you. How many of us, when we were younger, you thought that if you hid under the blanket or under the covers, it would protect you from anything. It would protect you from the boogeyman. It would protect you from a robber, the ghost, whatever. And to some extent, as an adult, do you still think that hiding under a blanket, will still help you? Did you believe that uh, you know, did your parents ever tell you don't cross your eyes? Because if you cross your eyes, they will stay like that. And I remember telling my son that, and then you think about it, it's like, oh, come on, that doesn't really happen. But did you stop crossing your eyes? You know, um, just things that your parents would just tell you, or things that your friends would tell you. Uh, if you kiss someone, you're automatically married to them. Um, uh, you know, from Santa Claus to the Easter Bunny, to Bigfoot. I mean, I don't know. Bigfoot could be real. Um, you know, when you go to Disneyland or Disney World, is Mickey Mouse, real? Is this really a gigantic mouse that actually talks? Um, there's just so many things. If you step on a crack, you will break your mother's back, and people or children believe that. So those are the things that that I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to send out some invites. If you want to join, no problem. If you don't want to join, not a problem. So anybody want to say anything? Anybody want to join? If not, I can keep going on stuff that people used to say as a kid, and people believe, because some of it is just really, really funny. What about if you're in a swimming pool? Now, how many people, if you can go back this far, when you saw Jaws, how many people were afraid to not only, get into the water in the ocean, but even in a swimming pool? Because you thought that donut, 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 that Jaws was going to come. I mean, come on, how many people actually thought that? Um, you know, what about when you watched black and white movies? Did you think that that's the way the world was, that things were actually in black and white, that you turn on a black and white TV show or movie, that everything literally was in black and white? So once again, there are just so many. And when I looked up some things, some things were just really funny to me. um But those were things that I remember, people telling me. And then when you start talking about the irrational things that believe, things that are just so e- irrational, and this is on a serious level, that that if where people think that if they fail at something, that they're not good enough. um if you make a mistake, people will see you as a failure. And I think that's irrational. But at the same time, is that something that you grew up with? Is that something that, someone consistently told you that, if you don't do this correctly, if you don't do this correctly, you'll be seen as a failure? Um, do you think that's an irrational thought? I think it is. So you know, when you look at people who criticize you, um, sometimes people think that if people criticize me, I must be a failure. So again, is that irrational? But when you think about it, it's like someone criticizes you, you're seeing yourself as a failure. Or if you make a mistake, there must be something wrong with you. But yet you're the same person that believed in Santa Claus. You're the same person that believed in the Easter Bunny. So are you really a failure? Of course not. We all fail. We all don't succeed the first time. Like they say, if at first you don't succeed, try again. But people um see themselves sometimes that, you know, if they don't measure up to people, then they should stop trying. And I think that that's an irrational thought. I don't want to measure up to anyone. I mean, I am myself. I don't, compare myself to anyone, because when you keep comparing yourself to someone, it just gets exhausting. And it just makes you crazy. So again, that's, to me, is something that's irrational. And when people say things to you like that, for some people it does have a profound effect. And I think, profound, it is a strong word, but some things carry on with people throughout their lives. Be it something as, if you step on a crack, or if it's something that is something that is more serious, where people are constantly saying that you are a failure. And some people don't even want to take risk because they're afraid to fail. I mean, we take risk every day. You take a risk just getting in your car. So we have irrational things that we do that are serious, and irrational things that we do, or think about or have done, that are funny. So, Crucible Man, you are on. You have the mic.
Some of the examples that you gave could also be classified maybe as wives' tales or superstitions. I don't have anything particular in my life that somebody told me that I, besides the usual thing when we're children. The blankets example was a good one. I still kind of, subconsciously think under the covers I'm safe from everything. But when we engage in irrational thinking, I mean, I don't have a definition in front of me here, but I think rational thinking is based on reason and logic, understanding, and irrational thinking is the opposite of that. And I think when it comes to irrational thinking, I don't know if it was Freud or somebody else who said it's a defense mechanism, and it is a form of deception, because it tries to justify things that we know probably aren't really true, because they're not connected to reason and logic or cognitive thought. So, whether it's Jaws or anything that we are struggling with, I think irrational thinking is a form, or rationalization, even if you want to go the opposite way, is a form of deceptive thinking. We're trying to justify things that we know innately maybe just don't make any sense, but we want to believe it so badly that we engage in a rational thought process that helps us inject logic and reason where it may not belong.
So, do you think that when we do that, we allow other people to do that also to us? Like if your mother or father, or your boss, or even a friend of yours, someone that you grew up with, or someone who's a friend now, if they consistently tell you, oh, you're stupid, you'll be a fit failure, do we allow them to inject that into our lives, that that thought process? And why do we allow people to do that?
To a certain degree, that's true. We do allow it, and it may be based on insecurity, a lack of knowledge. I'm not sure, but I may have mentioned this quote on a previous show on a different topic, so I don't mean to repeat myself. But I think it is um, it's so accurate when we apply it to our own lives. And it was a movie called The Big Chill back in the '80s, and William Hurt and Jeff Goldblum were having a philosophical argument about something moral. They were having a moral dilemma, and they were trying to solve the problem. And one of the characters said, "The power of rationalization, or sex is the most important thing in the world. It's more important than the power of rationalization." And the other guy came back and he said, "Oh, really? When's the last time you went a week without a good, juicy rationalization?" So, in other words, we go a lot longer without sex than we do without rationalizing our behavior. So I think the power of rationalization probably is what separates us from other primates or other mammals. But I think when we allow other people to sort of inflict that on us, it may just be a form of insecurity.
Okay, all right. Petty Deb, I see you wanted to come on, but I am not seeing you. I am not seeing you. Can you say something?
Can't hear me?
Okay, now, there you are. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. I
Oh,
think
well,
what happens,
first of all, I want to say welcome to California. I know you just drove in, and you have crappy weather today, but welcome to California. Okay, go ahead.
thank you so much. I think when you have, I agree a lot with Crucible Man. And when you already have that negative self talk going on in your head, it doesn't, people, they can give you all kind of compliments, but you already talking yourself down, so you don't hear anything else. Sometimes people are afraid of not failure but success, because
Interesting point.
when you're successful, that adds a different type of can you tell I've been in therapy forever? And
Nothing
I'm
wrong with
also a
that.
psych major, so but yeah, that's what happens. And it's like me, I do negative self-talk all the time, negative, 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 and I don't care what anybody tells me. It doesn't matter whether I'm awesome or whether I'm shit. It doesn't affect me personally anyway, because of that voice in my head telling me I don't measure up, and that is no one's issue but mine. Because when you telling me things, you can't get in my head because I'm already in my head.
I think that's interesting, because now I'm going to say to both you and Crucible Man, since you all are on the same thought process here. So Crucible Man just said self doubt can be crippling. But what about, again, I go back to things that we believed as a child and what have you. So why are we more open to believe negative things than positive things? Or we're more open to, I'm not even going to say positive. We're more open to believe that the negative as opposed to something that's just really silly. Some of the silly things that we grew up, believing as a child, or even some people may still do. Why do we choose to believe the negative as opposed to something that's just, when you think back at it, it's just so funny and ridiculous. I mean, when I was younger, I think I mentioned this on another show. I used to believe, because someone told me, that if the cars that are going to the dealership, all those cars that are on that truck, if one of them fell off, you were able to keep it. And I used to believe that. I believed that for a long time. Yeah, it's silly, it is ridiculous, but I believed it. So, Petty Deb, Crucible Man, anyone want to answer my question? Believing the negative as opposed to the funny and ridiculous?
Okay, funny and ridiculous. My dad used to tell my niece and nephew, Santa Claus is always watching you. And they were like, okay, Papa, show us. And you know that little eye in the CBS logo?
Yeah.
He said, that's Santa's eye. So they,
Well, that's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one to use. Okay. All
so
right.
sometimes people say that stuff just to just be messing with people.
Right. Right. But at the same time, you know, do you accept it, and then then after a while you're like, oh, he was being silly, whatever. But at the same time, if he were to say, you all are going to grow up to be a bunch of stupid people, would they believe that also?
Yes,
Right. So I'm saying you believe the negative, and you tend to keep the negative with you as opposed to keeping something that's funny or ridiculous with you.
it's easier to keep the negative. If you stay in that negative, you get yourself in the negative. When you start thinking positive, it feels uncomfortable because it's a new way of thinking. So you really do have to, and you have to believe that you are going to take this lemon and you are going to take it and turn it into lemonade.
That's interesting that you say that. I'm going to go to Crucible Man. You want to pick up on what Petty Deb said?
A good question. Why do we choose to believe the negative? And I do it all the time. And I think, not to get overly psychological here, but we all have self-doubt. I believe we all have insecurities, some more than others. We as individuals know ourselves better than anybody does. We know the good, the bad, the ugly, the warts, everything. And we tend to focus on those things, and we don't tend to focus on our positive attributes. I don't that's a flaw in human nature. I don't know, but as I said in the chat box, self-doubt can be crippling. There is um, I guess, for lack of a better word, a syndrome. That's what's actually in the title. I don't know what the technical word would be, but there's something called, and there was even a book written about it, and it applied to me in my life for the longest time, and it probably still does to some extent, and it's called the imposter syndrome. And what it deals with is our deep insecurities as individuals, and the fear we have that people are going to find out about them, that we're not who we say we are, we're not as good as we say we are, we're not as smart as we say we are, we're not as moral as we say we are. And at some point, we're going to be found out. We're going to be found out as imposters. And that, I think, is so prevalent. People I've mentioned it to just start nodding their heads, because for whatever reason, we are conditioned to believe negative things about ourselves. Mostly, I think, because we know ourselves well. We believe these things because we witness them in our own lives every day. Now, we may be outwardly very confident and show no signs of any insecurity, but everybody's got it, some more than others. And I think self-doubt, feeds that fear that we're going to be revealed as something that we're not.
Well, You bring up some good points because we all have skeletons. Everybody has at least one. It could be a big fat skeleton or it could be a little tiny skeleton, but we all have them. We all have something that, for whatever it is, we don't want other people to know. It could be something huge, and again, it could be something small that people would say, "Oh, that's not a big deal," but we all have them. You know, but again, I come back to why are we so willing to accept negative things? I mean, wouldn't you want your life to be positive? If someone you know uh tells you that Santa Claus is real, as a child we're like, oh, Santa, he's going to come and he's going to give me that, he's going to give me that. But then at the same time, as we grow older and we find out that Santa was really our parents, but yet as we grow older, people are telling us negative things. You're running with a different crowd, and as you get older, you do tend to hear more negative thoughts, and people will tell you negative things about yourself, about maybe your family, your friends, whatever, and we choose to believe them. And those things, sometimes tend to stick with us throughout life, as opposed to Santa or again, some other ridiculous things. So I ask you guys, have has someone ever told you, be it your parents or someone else, ever told you something that has stuck with you throughout the years? And I'll let Crucible Man answer that first, and then I'll go to Petty Deb.
Well, I nothing really too terribly deep. It was kind of like the rules of life sorts of things. When I was younger, I mean, as a child, was always pretty well behaved, but had a streak there where I was probably not a child anymore, but I may have been verging onto high school and just trying to form relationships and figure out how to get into adulthood without killing myself. Not suicide, but I mean just stupid things I used to do as a kid. And my mother used to say things like, you're not going to be young forever. It's easy right now, and you need to get your act together because your people are judging you, and you're going to get a reputation. And it was the first time. I was probably about 20 years old, and it was really the first time I started to think about reputation and how difficult they are to get back when you've screwed it up. And I started to really focus on that particular aspect of my life, and it was kind of like you never get a second chance to make a first impression. She may have even used those words, and ever since then, I've tried to be a lot more conscientious about things. It's not a very profound statement. It's common sense, I guess, but for somebody who wasn't really behaving that way and didn't really see how it was relevant to my life. Like I said, I was 20 years old. I thought I had the world by the ass and I had all the answers. And it was a wake up call. And I got myself together. I got a job, and things have turned out, reasonably well. But it took that kind of conversation that, you don't know what you're in the process of squandering here. And it was a wake up call. So was it profound? No. Was it helpful? Definitely.
Okay, so that's on the serious side. So is there anything more on the silly or ridiculous side that you still believe that someone told you?
Not off the top of my head. No, maybe it'll come to me.
Okay. Petty Deb, you want to answer that same question?
Okay, something truthful. My dad said, "You're mean." And I was like, "Oh, that was my issue. He just articulated it better." I'm like, "What's going on?" And then so I mean, but that nothing else. Santa Claus, whatever. It's like, if you believed in that shit, shame on you. That type thing. Um, my daughter, I have scarred her for her life. Okay, this is so messed up. When we were in New Mexico, that was after my divorce, and I was a single parent. So I was trying to slip money up under her pillow because she lost a tooth. Well, she woke up And as she woke up, well, I stood up and I looked out the window and I said, Cat, I said, do you see him? Do you see him? She's like, Mom, what? I was like, you see that little leprechaun guy? You see him running across the yard? See, he got in that Cadillac over there. I swear to God, she thinks I'm mean. And she just, I,
What? So she still believes that there's a leprechaun that put money up under her pillow?
no, she just know that I'm mean for telling her that story. She says she keeps having nightmares about it.
Okay, all right. All right, but I mean, people tend to tell their children things, or your teachers will tell their students something, to get them to behave. I mentioned this, once before on a previous show where my mother had this thing where she did not like my sister and I when we went to sleep. She did not like us having our arms or legs hanging over the bed. And she told us, this is when we were little, that there was a witch that lived up under the bed, and she would, eat our arms and legs if we had them hanging over to the over the side of the bed. To this day, I do not, I make sure that my body is on the bed, and I cannot sleep with a closet door open, because my sister and I, we used to watch or listen to, if you remember, back this far, we used to listen to radio mystery theater, which I ordered some of those tapes, and it's scary as hell. To this day it scares me, but I cannot sleep with the closet door open. It has to be closed, and if it's open, just so I cannot see it. But if it's a closet door that I can see, it has to be closed. So those are things, that, when I say things that stay with you. Welcome Juju, welcome David D, and welcome DDD3 or triple D3. I'm assuming maybe that is, but then on a serious side, things that stay with you. Petty Deb, you said that your dad said that you were mean. Um, I used to talk about people in high school. I used to talk about people really, 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 really bad. And my father said one day it's going to happen to you, and it happened to me. And it happened to me really bad, And these girls were talking about me when we were in the locker room changing after gym class or PE or whatever you want to call it, and they talked about me like a dirty dog. I went home crying, boo-hoo, whatever. And finally, when I told my parents what happened, my father just looked at me, and he didn't say what. I got no words of forgiveness, no, oh, are you okay, whatever. It was like, well, that's what happens. And I learned my lesson. And to this day, I try, not to talk about people, and I try to say, which is true, you don't know what's going on with people, don't assume, so on a serious note, that has stayed with me. So again, it's like, you know um has anything ever happened to you where not only was it a wake-up call, but it was a wake-up call that could have possibly changed the way you live your life? And on the same note, has anything ever happened to you, like on a funny note, that someone did or said to you that also changed the way you live your life? Petty Deb, I'm going to start with you. And if anyone else wants to join in, you are more than welcome. Petty Deb.
No, not that I, you know, that even. I mean, I used to get beat up every day, um, but
Beat
I
up
didn't care.
beat up in school or by your
I mean,
parents, or
no, beat up in school because it was just so damn simple. Okay. We lived on one side in houses. On the other side there were projects. So we had to go over there and catch the school bus in the projects. We were all being bussed into a white college, I mean a white school, like way out there. Matter of fact, Look, this school was so white. We had a bowling team, a golf team, a swim team, a field hockey team, uh, 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 what do you call them? Bow and arrow teams. Is that white or what?
Archery.
Yeah, that one. That's a white school. I could go and bowl, and that would take care of my PE credit. They would meet at the golf course. That would be your PE credit. They had these kids, they were driving cars. I didn't even know what they were. We were being bussed in. Porsches, BMWs. I'm like, I don't know what that is. All I know, we break and go and get high and come back. I didn't know we were with them people. I can show you. I'm gonna take some pictures and show you some of these houses that these people had because they would take out full page ads in our yearbook, $100 a page, and they put their spreads in and anything. But yeah, anyway. But no, that was it. I would because, like I said, even though we go to the same school, we just got beat up, and they had more stuff than us. I didn't even
So
know
wait,
what a
wait,
moped
I'm
was.
I'm confused. So you're getting beat up what? Because you all are what, the Boston students would get beat up? Or are you getting beat up by the people who lived
Oh,
across the
because we
street?
live in houses. We live in houses instead of in the projects.
So you were getting beat up by the people in the projects.
And the projects because
Okay, all right,
they
okay,
said that we thought we were better. But I mean, it wasn't what it was. It was a rent apartment. So in actuality, some people were paying the same or more for the house payment that my mom and dad were paying. It's just they chose to stay there. So it wasn't necessarily, it was one of those low rent houses and they went on how much income you had. But a lot of
okay.
them just chose to stay. But we got beat up. But does it bother me? Does it stick with me? Does it stop me from doing anything today? No. One girl who used to beat me up religiously, she called me and she didn't even remember beating me up. And I'm like, and then she's crying. And I'm trying to console her, like, really? Is really you? I said, you used to kick my ass every day. I said, we go to Girl Scout, you kick my ass. I don't remember. And she's crying like a baby.
Well, I mean, maybe she had to come to Jesus moment.
Hey, but it didn't affect me. That's between her and whatever, because whatever she told me or however she talked about me or how many times she ever kicked my butt, it didn't matter. It didn't stick with me. Um so yeah, saying things like that, nah, that didn't bother. Oh my God, they used to say I had ears like Dr. Spock, but now every time, maybe it does the opposite now because every time I get to show my ears, I do. But those things,
Okay, all right,
you know.
all right. So, again, so when you look at some of the irrational things that happen, or, things that either stick with you, or, they don't stick with you, somewhere as you live your life, um, things that happen to you throughout your life, I believe bits and pieces of it will start to show, and what I mean by that is, you know, um, if you were picked on as a child, um, if you got everything as a child, um, if you had great relationships with your parents, if you didn't have great relationship with your parents, I believe that somewhere throughout your life, a little bit of that is going to creep out. Um, it might pop up when you're in high school. It might pop up while you're in a relationship with someone else. Um, you know, things that people told us when we were growing up, or as we got older, the ridiculous stuff, that we used to believe. I believe that things like that, they tend to show themselves. um they tend to uh we tend to maybe subconsciously pass some of that stuff on, or we do it in a conscious way, but subconsciously we may not even know that we're doing it, but then on another level, we probably purposely do it. So I hope you guys are following, what I'm trying to say. So having said that, I'm going to start with Crucible Man. Is there anything that you have done, or someone has said to you, your mom said, or at a job or something, or when you were little, again, be it either serious or even something funny, that you've carried into your life, thus far, from that you subconsciously or you purposely do or carry forward? I hope I didn't confuse people, because I know what I'm trying to say.
Not off the top of my head. I'm getting old and my memory's not quite what it used to be. But I wanted to ask you a question, Solid Blue. Do you think because rationalization, can be a form of dishonesty? In other words, we're sort of engaging in some self-deception to justify behavior. Do you think our rationalization process hurts other people? Do you think, because rationalization is a very personal thing, not everybody rationalizes the same way. It depends on our circumstances. But since we're engaging in some form of dishonesty, are we impacting other people with our twisted form of logic? Is kind of what I'm curious about, because it is, irrational thought doesn't make any sense, but sometimes rational thought doesn't make any sense. And I wonder, in our pursuit of rationalization, do we hurt other people?
I mean, I would say yes, depending upon what that quote unquote rational thought is.
I would agree.
I mean, you have people who let's take what's his name, the from Guyana, Jim Jones. Now, was Jim Jones a rational person? I would say no, because of the fact that he was able to get over 700 people to drink Kool-Aid that was tainted and poisoned, and they drank it. But on another thing, was he a rational person? Yeah, he was, because he was able to get these people under his control and do whatever they whatever he wanted them to do. So yeah, I mean, I think you can be both rational and irrational, but definitely when you do irrational things, or your rational thinking that is really irrational thinking, it can hurt people if it's directed at someone other than yourself. I mean, if you go around saying that you wake up one morning and say, everyone who has on red, you are a sinner. Can you hold on one second? Juju, you may want to go into your settings, go to Podbean, and make sure that your volume's on. Okay, I'm sorry. So you're saying, is rationalization a form of selfishness? Not necessarily. It depends on what your rationale is. I mean, you could be a very rational person but not be selfish. So I guess I'm a little confused, Crucible Man, when you say, is rationalization a form of selfishness? Because there are some rational people who make a lot of sense, but you have some irrational people who don't make sense, and they say things and do things that will harm others.
Well, we bend the reason I'm asking about selfishness is we tend to bend the logic and reason curve, to our will to fit our rationalization. And if we're trying to believe something that's really not true, or is some kind of self-indulgent behavior, is are we justifying something that we know we shouldn't justify? I mean, it is a form of dishonesty, but selfishness is in itself, maybe a form of a little bit of dishonesty. So I guess anytime you would indulge some thinking that would not necessarily stand up to logic and reason for your own purposes, that sounds a little selfish to me.
But okay, but so are you saying that everyone that's rational is selfish?
Now we've got two words now. We've got rational and rationalization. Rational, I think, I don't have a definition in front of me, but I think rational is clear-headed thinking. Rationalization is more justification. We try to attach logic and reasoning to something that maybe isn't appropriate. So I think there's a difference between rational and rationalization. Rationalization is a thought process. Rational is a state of mind, I think.
Okay, so I just looked up rationalization, the action of attempting to explain or justify behavior or an attitude with logical reasons, even if these are not appropriate. Um, but that doesn't mean, I mean, if you're attempting to justify behavior or an attitude with logical reasons, that doesn't mean that you're selfish.
But if those logical reasons don't apply and you're forcing them in because you need to believe something, that is a form of selfishness.
Well,
I'm
no,
only
I mean, okay, but now you're saying if you're forcing them, if you're forcing them in, but I mean, you can try to put a square peg in a round hole. Does that mean that you're selfish, or does that mean that you just are really trying to get your thought or get your opinion across to someone? That doesn't mean you're selfish. It's just that you're, to me, it's like that you're just really trying to make logic out of whatever it is that you think. I mean, I wouldn't say that you're selfish.
that might be a little extreme. I was just curious because like I said, I think rationalization, does involve some self-deception. And anytime you're being deceptive, you're trying to get something that you might not ordinarily get. And if that means a positive outcome on something, or a positive thought on something that doesn't necessarily justify a positive thought, you're deceiving yourself. But I guess as long as it doesn't hurt other people, we are, as I said before, we are rational beings, and that's what separates us from other mammals. And we need rationalization to get us through our lives. It's not a bad thing in and of itself, and it may not necessarily be a good thing, but it's a coping mechanism. It's a defense mechanism, and we all need those things at various points in our lives, as long as in the pursuit of them we're not hurting other people. But they're as important to us as breathing.
I mean, I find it, I just find it, I find it interesting, that now I do agree that whatever, and not just being rational. I think whatever we do in life. I mean, I think if you go to the store and you go to the market and you get your food, you go back into to your car, whatever. As long as we can go from point A to point B without hurting anyone. I mean, in our daily lives, just do it without hurting anyone. But I find I find it interesting that that you uh, you know again put rationalization or being rational with being selfish. And I just looked up selfish. Selfish is lacking consideration for others, concerned chiefly with one's own personal profit or pleasure. And there are some very selfish people. But I think, again, that when you rationalize something, I don't think that means that you're being selfish. I mean, unless that you are, you're being selfish to have your own uh, narrative that will help you personally, that will help you profit and hurt someone. But I don't think that when people try to rationalize that they're, purposely doing it to hurt someone else. Because if that's the case, everyone who's trying to rationalize something, we're all hurting other people. And I don't think that's true. In fact, I know it's not true. So,
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. That makes sense. And I'm not characterizing everybody who engages in rationalization as being selfish or dishonest. It takes that form because that's just the natural process of rationalization, and that's it involves a level of self-deception, and that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes we need to deceive ourselves, even if it's just temporarily, in order to get to another place. I think those kinds of things are harmless, so I don't disagree with your point. It's a good one.
okay. All right. Uh, Petty Deb, do you want to contribute to that, or if not, I'm going to keep going because I do have another question.
Keep going.
All right. So now, okay. So going off of what Crucible Man just said, would you say that people who try to rationalize, um, and again, I'm thinking about everything that you just said, people who try to rationalize things that maybe not, they're not quite making it, they're not quite there with their rational thought. Do you think that people who try to rationalize something that maybe they just can't rationalize are purposely lying to people? Or do you think that this is something that they really are attempting to do, that they really are trying to figure out and rationalize either their behavior or their behavior of others? So in order to do that, they have to lie. Crucible Man.
I think most people know the difference between right and wrong. They know the difference between moral and immoral, and sometimes they willingly engage in a rationalization process, knowing that they're lying to themselves or they're lying to somebody else. So I think it's a natural. I think it's a natural part of the rationalization process is to I don't want to split hairs and get into semantics, but when I think of rationalization, I think of a way to maybe make sense of something in a much more complex thought process. Justification, I think, is a little more straightforward. You're simply trying to justify thinking a certain way, knowing that it may not add up, logically. So I think we all know when we're engaging in a rationalization process, and I think rationalization and justification are very very similar. You're trying to give yourself permission about something that otherwise you shouldn't be giving yourself permission on. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but we all know when we're rationalizing, it's 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 black and white in a lot of ways, and yet we try to get it more nuanced because the nuance fits our narrative better. The black and white is too stark, so we have to engage in a little more nuance, and then that kind of gets us through the night, if you will.
It's interesting because now you're bringing in another word. You're bringing in justification, and I'm keeping up with you. I just want to give out the definition for everyone who's listening. The action of showing something to be right or reasonable. So then we have another word here. What is reasonable? Um, you know, um, I think most people, throughout their life, whether you're trying to rationalize something, where you're trying to justify something, whatever, I think that they're really trying to do it because they really are, because they really want to know. They really, are trying to understand something. Um, then I think that people try to justify and rationalize something like you said earlier, where they know that they're talking a bunch of BS and they say things and they do things, and you have people believe it, and it hurts people. I mean, we see it every day, you know. Um, but at the same time, you know, I think that um, however we try to rationalize or justify something or make something reasonable, if we're saying it to a group of people, to children or whomever, we have to do it in a way where we're not hurting other people. But if you're just doing it just to rationalize it for yourself, if you're sitting in your car and you're trying to, okay, somebody just said this to me, now I'm trying to figure this out. What did they mean? Then, you know, that's one thing. But when you hurt someone else, that is something else. So going back to the fun and the ridiculous things, let me ask this. Um, when I was younger, and again, this is silly. This is really silly. But I used to believe this up until I was like around 10, 11, which is kind of old for me to believe this. When people played the radio, when I would listen to the radio, I used to think that like the Jackson 5 and what have you, they were actually in the studio and they were there. You know, it didn't dawn on me that this was a record. You know, and I know it sounds really, really silly. And I would tell someone that, you know, and I remember telling this one particular friend, and they believed me. And she would go home, and her brothers just used to tease her and tease her. Oh, you know, you're stupid, you're silly. No, that's actually a record. No, no, no. You know, I was told that. You know, blah blah blah. So and so told me this. So and so told me this. So, was I hurting them? Was I hurting them because I said that? Even though I'm trying to rationalize this group that's on the radio, this group that I really really liked. Am I lying to them? And Crucible Man, I'm gonna go to you because we were just talking about things that you say, you know, that you try to rationalize that can hurt other people. So did it hurt, you know, my friend because she went back home and she's telling her brothers are calling her stupid. So did that hurt her? And I'm like 10 years old.
No, I wouldn't think. I mean, there's a difference, I think, between ignorance and dishonesty. When I say ignorance, I don't mean it in a pejorative way. I just mean in the absence of knowledge. So if you're 10 years old and you don't know how the radio works and that they're playing records, you're engaging in some irrational thought there because it's impractical that they'd have a band, you know, in the studio. It just doesn't work that way. But you were basing your assumptions on a lack of knowledge. It was not about deception. You weren't telling somebody, deliberately telling something false. You really believed it. So was that even a rationalization, or was that just a form of, not being informed?
But as we get okay, but even as you get older and you're an adult, can't you still, you know, think something and think that something's true, and we try to rationalize it, and then you tell someone else and it hurts someone, but it wasn't your intention because you really truly believe what you were trying to rationalize.
Well, rational thought and irrational thought are no different than anything else in life. In the hands of the right people, they can be useful, maybe not irrational, but rationalization. In the hands of the wrong people, they can be harmful. So I don't think rationalization or irrational thought in and of themselves are inherently good or bad. Obviously, it depends on our intent. And if your intent was to deliberately tell that friend of yours that the Jackson 5 were playing in the studio, well, that is obviously dishonesty. But I don't think
But is
either
it
one.
okay? Was it dishonesty, or if it's something that I truly believed? I believe. I mean, I'm serious. I believe that the Jackson Five or whomever I was listening to. I mean, I was Motown back then, so still am. But I believe that Diana Ross and the Supremes were in the studio. So was it just the dishonesty? If I truly believed that that's what it was, and was I being dishonest?
No, no, I don't. I
But
don't think so. You were just being
okay,
wrong.
no, okay, but you just said that it was dishonest.
I must have misspoke. I meant to say not
Okay,
dishonest. Yeah,
okay, all right, okay. So again, it's like as we get older, and people are telling you things that you know now it gets to whether they're trying to rationalize it, or even if they're just out and out lying to us. Should we as individuals have enough, this is where the word common sense comes in, or the two words common sense comes in, when we should have common sense not to believe certain things. I mean, am I too old to believe that there's a Santa Claus? I mean, so at some point, should we be old enough, to know that just certain things are just, come on, that's that, you should know better.
well, that's kind of goes back to that quote that I used from that movie. It's a good juicy rationalization can can cover a multitude of sins. I mean, it really it can be as almost important as breathing. And I don't say that for dramatic effect. We don't even realize. I mean, when you consider, go back to that quote, where people prioritize sex in their lives. I mean, to a lot of people, it's the most important thing in the world. But if you go a week, a month, 6 months, a year without engaging in any sexual activity, you probably live a pretty okay life. Millions of people do. Would you be able to go even 3 days without engaging in the power of rationalization? I don't think so. It's what sustains us. And whether that's a little bit of self deception for the time being or not, it helps us, justify things or make sense of things that otherwise, might not make sense. But I think people don't appreciate the power of rationalization in their daily lives.
I'm going to come back to you for a moment, but Petty Deb, do you want to say anything to any of this? If not, I'm going to do a rebuttal to Crucible Man. Okay, Crucible Man. All right. So, would you? Okay, so you're saying that we would not be able to, and I know you're talking about the the movie The Big Chill. So, are you saying that we would not? The average person cannot go 3 days without rationalizing something?
The time frame, I might, I'm not, don't quote me on 3 days. I mean, it's a week, whatever it happens to be, some reasonable, short amount of time. I think rationalization it can be very subconscious. It doesn't have to be writ large up in the sky. We can engage in very subconscious rationalizations, tiny ones, medium sized ones. I think it goes on so often that we don't even realize that it's happening. We make these micro rationalizations, we make macro rationalizations,
So
but we're
give
always
give give
justifying
an
something.
example. Give me an example of a micro rationalization, if you can.
Let's say you're in traffic and you're needing to get off at an exit, and um, you're not in the right lane, and you swerve over and you jump in front of somebody's car. They slam on the brakes, they're cursing you out and whatnot, and you realize you did something wrong, and you say, that was not the right thing to do. However, if I didn't do that, I would have been late for my appointment. I would have hit the car in front of me. I would, whatever the case may be, whatever behavior you just engaged in, you are giving yourself a pass because you're coming up with reasons why that was okay for you to do that. I'm not sure that's a
Okay.
great example,
No,
but it's
no, that was very good. All right. All right. So, everyone who is in the is listening, would you guys agree with what Crucible Man just said? If you guys can put it in the chat. If not, I will keep going. Okay, we just have a group here that's just listening. And Betty Deb, I don't know if you're still on or if you're not. Crickets. That's okay. That is okay. Is okay. So, all right. So, on a would you think, going back to what we were talking about earlier, when the show first started, about people choosing to believe negative, um, irrational things as opposed to positive or funny irrational things, do you think that when people choose to believe the negative, that they're almost looking for problems, like you're looking for something to go wrong? Meaning, some people say everything is just going right, something has to go wrong. I mean, why do you think people do that, or say, you know everything happens in threes, especially death. This person passed away, this person passed away, so I know it has to be another person. Why do we choose to look towards, or, you know I don't even want to say look forward to, but it seems like the people almost seek out the negative as opposed to just enjoying the positive. Everything's going right now. This is cool. I'm happy. Everything's, I don't want anything to go wrong. Why do we seek out the negative? And I'm going to go back to Crucible Man. I'm not sure if Petty Deb is still on. Crucible Man.
I think we're conditioned to expect bad things because that's kind of what life is about, and not necessarily bad things, but unfortunate things. Um, we nobody's life usually goes in a straight line, and we generally don't go on extended runs of prosperity without them being interrupted by some misfortune. So I think we don't like to get ahead of ourselves, because if you start to think everything, now you're on a roll, you're enjoying some success, you're making some money, you think it's never going to change. I've certainly been through periods of my life where that's been the case, and I thought, I'm never going back. It's never going to change, and boy, did it change. So I think we're just conditioned based on our life experiences to know that the stretch of good fortune always comes to an end. So I think we're afraid sometimes to enjoy success. Maybe we feel guilty about it, and we're just waiting for the next negative thing to happen, because it reinforces our experiences. And I think that's it's as simple as explanation as I can come up with, and whether that's also based on some, we don't like to believe good things are going to happen to us, or that we deserve good things. It's just a matter of time before this reverses itself. It just depends on the person, but I think, I think I'll just leave it there.
Okay. You brought up some really good points. You brought up some really good points. You know, whatever we do in life, and growing up, whatever things that we believe, some of the silly things we believe, and even some of the serious things that people may have told us that may have been on the negative. The only thing that I can say to everyone is, we all try to live a good life, and sometimes it's fun to believe and pass on some of the silly things that we heard from our parents, or whatever, and we pass them on to our own children, or just pass them on, period. Sometimes it's fun, but when it gets into irrational things, and when people are telling you things, especially about yourself, that that you're not good enough, you'll never amount to anything, you are stupid, whatever, though, that's when you need to turn down the volume, or just turn off the radio and not listen to those people, and just live, like they say, live the best life, that you possibly can, because I believe that we are all put on this earth for a reason. Some people are put on this earth where they make a big splash. And when I say that, I mean, everyone knows who they are. They're popular, whatever, they're well known. They may be, rich as hell. Then there are those who aren't popular. They're the ones that you may never know their name. They can be as poor as a church mouse. You know, um, someone that you pass in the street that you may see them and you don't see them, but that person could have just made someone smile. That person, you know, you could have dropped something and they picked something up for you. Just because they were being kind. So I do believe that for whatever reason, we are all put here for a reason, and we shouldn't, allow other people to make us feel bad about ourselves. But at the same time, we shouldn't make other people feel bad about themselves. So whatever you believed as a child, because I believe some really doozies, whatever. When I was thinking about this show, I was laughing at some of the things. In fact, I was talking to my sister and we were laughing at some of the stuff, that we used to believe growing up, and some things that, our parents used to tell us that now is just absolutely ridiculous, but it was funny. So with that, Crucible Man, you are the only one on the mic today. So do you want to have any last words before we go?
I've always been a fan of psychology. I studied it a little bit in school, and I've always been fascinated by the people's thought processes, and the power of rationalization is one of the more profound phenomena that we have in our lives. And I think it's fascinating to witness how people deduce things and come to conclusions and justify things. We're all human. We all make mistakes, but without the power of rationalization, I think we'd all go insane.
Okay. All right. And with that, I want to say thank you for everyone for listening. Thank you for everyone who joined the show and took the time to stay and listen. Thank you for everyone who liked the show. And Frankie, as always, thank you for being a super fan, and your pod beans and your super chats. I do thank you. Everyone, again, I always say speak your truth, but I'm also going to add, once again, go where the wind takes you. I am Solid Blue Sister. This is my turn to talk, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye. Juju, you are back. I hope you got your volume fixed. Sometimes you have to go into settings on your phone. I'm only speaking for iPhone. I'm not sure about Android, but you go on there and you may want to check your microphone. And thank you for joining, Juju. Crucible Man, thank you for being, I guess, my co-host today. You and Petty Deb for as long as she stayed, but I know she had to leave. And David D, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Jack, thanks for coming in, but we are ending the show. And again, thank you everyone for liking the show. And let me see. No one, let's see. Nope. Yesterday we had tons of comments. Today everyone was just listening. So, Crucible Man, I think they like what you had to say. Everyone's listening today. You should take a bow. I think they did. So, Juju, did your sound come back? I see you're able to chat. Did your sound come back? Were you able to hear? I'm assuming yes. Unless you're just giving out love here. Okay, now Crucible Man. Crucible Ma'am. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because Crucible Man's name is just jacked up so much. All right. All right, y'all. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.